Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mount Mindset. Now, in this week's episode, what I'm planning to do is do a little story time. The reason I thought of this is that if any of you guys have joined the Mount Mindset community, you'll know the video playlist series that I did where I went over the top things that people experience, the top obstacles that they experience and what you should do to get around them. And I thought it was a bit of fun. Why don't we tell a little stories? And these stories will be either people that have came to me with this particular issue, or maybe something that I've experienced in the past. And I think it just adds a good bit of context. If you are out there and you feel like this is something that gets in the way for yourself, then don't worry. It happens to the best of us. And most importantly, how to deal with it. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. So, destroying doubt and feeling confident is number one on the playlist. The main thing about confidence is it's something that people struggle with because they don't really have a great understanding of where confidence really comes from. Confidence comes from within. It doesn't come from a video or some sort of external source. It comes from inside you. And confidence is that you have a certain degree of certainty about your ability, that you can get a decent outcome. And the way to build confidence is actually, and when I say build confidence, what I mean is you have doubt on one side and you have confidence on the other side. So you imagine the scale is doubt to confidence. And if you're experiencing doubt, it's that you just lack confidence about the particular thing that you're doing. And the best way to overcome that is actually to expose yourself to it. Like, so a classic example of thought that comes to mind is whenever I've started something new, I remember years and years and years ago when I first got a job, I had a sales job, and at that time you're never really exposed to rejection on a basis that you would do if you were working in a sales role where people are, for lack of a better word, telling you to beat it because you're trying to sell them something. And I remember that feeling of, have I done the right thing? Because I don't really know if I'm sort of cut out for this. And especially when there was a high turnover in the shop where people that didn't like rejection, or people telling them no, or to beat it, they basically left. They couldn't hack it. And I remember there was a guy called Andy who was an ex-military guy, just left the military, and he had decided to get a job. So he was working beside us, and he had a great ethos of how to handle rejection. Now, again, I wouldn't recommend what he suggested. So, well, for clarity, I'm not recommending doing this, but it serves as a great way to understand how to go over things. And we were basically discussing, if somebody told you what to do. And Andy said that when they used to go out, when they were in the military, and they were out in the pool, they would go and see if they could try and get 20 no's in a row. And whoever got to 20 no's would win the kitty. So they would all put 20 quid in a glass. And the idea was is that they'd all sort of, ask girls out, and then if they got to 20 no's, they got the reward, and it served as amping them up and giving them a bit of energy and motivation to go out and get out of their shell and to not worry about being rejected. And I thought it was quite a fun idea of how to build a resistance to rejection. And we were discussing, we could do that in the shop. Let's see if we could get 20 no's in a row without selling something. And what it served was it built your resistance to being rejected. And one of the things that you can feel about rejection is that it's part of the game. If everyone said yes to everything, then life would be pretty boring, wouldn't it? So what you want to do is make it a bit more fun and know that it's part of the game, accept it and move to being confident about rejection. And what that does is it removes doubt. So rejection, failure, doubt are all in the same sort of bracket, that you fear not getting the result and you fear how it makes you feel. And becoming confident means that you have a degree of confidence that you're going to get the result that you want. So the best way to do that is to actually make a little light of what you're planning to do and have a good time doing it. So number two, again, on the topic of rejection and fear. So let's crush rejection and fear. Leap from the side hustle to becoming free. And what that means is for a lot of people, one of the biggest moves that they can make in their life is if you are in a situation where you're employed and you have a safety net in terms of you show up for work, you get paid a certain amount, and that is your guarantee of what you get paid each month, and you can work with that. You might have to have some trade-offs with that, and the trade-off traditionally is that you don't feel that you're heard. You might have politics. You might be working with people that are in there that you don't necessarily want to work with. You may have a manager or a boss that isn't as good at the job as you, and they're telling you how to do it, which is a surefire way to rile you up. You can also face a situation where you want to spread your wings. I mean, one of the things in an employment situation is they tend to be quite, they will keep you in a cage, keep you in tight confines. You are to be led and not to lead in most cases. And there's not a great autonomy around making decisions. So lots of people feel trapped and their kindred spirit can't be free. So moving from that safety net into something that isn't guaranteed is often not the biggest leap in terms of what you do in your life, but it's certainly one of the biggest mental leaps. And becoming free is having the confidence that you can do what you're good at. And one of the things that, when I made that jump extremely early. So the great thing is that you have a bit of arrogance of youth that you think, hey, it's going to work out. In my own situation, I didn't have a lot of money, so I didn't have a lot to lose. And I thought, if I don't make it work, then I can always end up doing what I'm doing. And I was reasonably good at it. So I didn't feel the burden of, this could be the end. And if you've got a family, a mortgage, people to support, then you can turn that round to be your greatest driver, because a lot of the fear is, if I can't support them, I am a failure. But what happens if you can become free? What happens if this side hustle can now be your main job, and you can make a lot more money doing that, and you have much more freedom? So making that move can really actually amplify and benefit your situation if you let it. But to do that, you do need to take a leap. So you need to switch your perspective of this thing being your safety net, being the job that you're in, and then this thing being highly risky, which is the new venture that you want to take. And what I would say is just start to switch your perspective, ask the sort of questions: what happens if you do well? What happens if you do start to get the result? And this is where you start to see a massive change in how you perceive things. So that would be what I would recommend for number 2. Number 3, wow, is this a big one? Now, in number 3, what this is when people have had great success. Now, following on from, if you've had a degree of, or you make the leap from employment or corporate world or whatever it is that you're doing, you go and start a side hustle, a business, you do pretty well, you get a great result. In fact, not typically the results are way beyond what you thought was possible, because as momentum builds, you get more and more results as you experience what can be done from the point of when you're involved in it, because sometimes it's hard to see that when you begin. So you can limit what you think is possible. And as you rapidly progress through, you inevitably can do way more than you thought, because as you get more involved, you can see the opportunities. And that's the whole idea of being an entrepreneur, that you take advantage of those opportunities and make it a success. But when you get to that success point, something happens, is the people take the foot off the gas and they lose a bit of hunger and they get a little complacent. And it happens, it's a well-trodden path. And if that sounds like you, you're not alone. And one of the things that you feel, you can have money, you can have success, you can have, all the toys, the glitz and the glam, but there's something aching away inside of you. And that is that you are missing that edge, that thing that drives you. There's this feeling of thrill and growth, and you feel that you're living close to your potential when you are pushing yourself towards something and you're pushing your limits. And then despite having all the toys and all the glitz, the glam, the cash, all the material things, you're not living on that edge again. And that's the thing, you're like, what's missing? And that's what it is. And it's about time to re-engage. And it's probably, when I work with people to get them to the next level and to mentor them to tap into that potential, this is probably the one that's the biggest of them all in terms of where people will stagnate. So it's the most frequent one that needs to be handled, and it can be handled extremely well to get an extremely good result. However, it's one of the ones that it's so subtle that it's very, very difficult to work out what to do. And sometimes you need someone else to be a sounding board to bounce those ideas off of. So what I would recommend is if this feels like you, go to someone you trust who's ideally been where you've been or has a great experience in understanding performance, and speak to them about it and sound your ideas off of them, because what happens is you start to open up the conversation. When you open up that conversation, you'll start to re-engage that magic that's within you. That potential start to come out to the fore. And my own personal experience with this is that I remember hitting a particular milestone when I was coming through the investment ranks, shall we say, and I'd set a big milestone, hit the target, and then just sort of took my foot off the gas. And I noticed it myself. I bought myself a supercar, thought everything was going great. And it didn't instantly hit me, because you're like, yes, everything's amazing, it's great, and what a fantastic sort of result that I've had, but not realising that I was actually taking the momentum out of myself, and that was the thing that was eating away at me. And it was so subtle, I couldn't work out why I felt off, why I felt that there was something missing. And that something missing was that I'd taken the foot off the gas. And I had to go back through that. When I figured that out, I had to set myself a much larger goal. And I don't mean goals in terms of financial goals, I mean goals in terms of personal growth. And when I say personal growth, I don't mean I went out to the woods and held a tree and, that type of thing. I mean, personal growth is in, right, I have this ability, how can I make best use of it? And I can be doing something for someone else, I can be doing something, I can be helping others, I can be passing on my wisdom, I can be taking on a new hobby or a new skill or a new talent or developing myself in some way. And that's what I did. I took the skills that I had and figured out where I could apply them. And I went from an industry that I knew everything about, and I'd done everything top to bottom, back to front, left to right, and done everything inside and out, the whole kit and caboodle. And I went into an industry that I knew nothing about, but I had the particular skills. And then I went from knowing everything in the room to I was in rooms where I knew nothing. And that then sparked and ignited my interest. And then it connected what I knew previously and the things that I was learning in this new industry, and then joined them together. And it infinitely made me a better investor, and I got better results. But again, that's the flashy sort of material things. What it done was it gave me growth. So if that sounds like you, go and find something that can challenge you and can push that potential that you have, and go and start to grow. Okay, number 4, the work hard and work smart trap. So this is a classic entrepreneur trap. When you've maybe heard the expression to work smarter, not harder, and it means that a lot of people can take that out of context, meaning that you shouldn't work hard. You definitely should, but when you work hard, you should know why, or to what end, what benefit it has. And if you're working smartly, then what you're doing is you know what that end is, you know what the objective is, you know what the outcome is. And when you have that outcome in mind, what it means is you can figure out where you're going. And then if you want to increase the rate of speed that you can get there, then guess what you do? You work harder. But working hard and working smart are often not mutually exclusive. So just because you're working harder doesn't necessarily mean you're working smarter. And just because you're working smarter doesn't necessarily mean that you're working as hard as you should or you could. And sometimes people can get that round the wrong way. Certainly, one of the things that I learned is that when I was, you can keep yourself busy doing things that don't really get you any result, but it can make you appear busy. And it wasn't until you started to review. I remember when I read James Clear, Atomic Habits, and that was the first time that I really sort of looked in depth at my own habits. And what that showed to me was it gave me the understanding that just because you're doing something and you appear busy, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing well or you're getting the result. You can spin your wheels. The analogy that I'll use quite often is that if you have a goal or place that you want to get to, or a result that you want to achieve, what you're looking for is to get to from A to B. So where you're at just now to a particular result or place. And it's similar if you were, at home and you wanted to drive to a destination, you would plot your course and you would get in your car and you would drive from wherever your home is to wherever your destination was, and you would plan and map that out. And if you were to give an analogy of looking busy and thinking that you're going to get to the destination, you can jump in your car outside your house and you can drive round and round and round and round the block, but you're not going anywhere. But you are driving, and it does appear that you're doing something, but it's going nowhere. And that's where the work smarter comes in, is you need to know why you're going. So it looks like you're working hard because you're driving, you're in the car, but you're going nowhere. So working smart and working hard are powerful when you know how to use them both together. And when you know how to use them both together, then you can get clarity in your direction. And that was what happened to me when I understood that there was lots of things that I was doing that appeared that I was busy and appeared to be progress. When I refined them and made sure that I actually was heading with all energy and effort to the destination I wanted, then I directed my focus and shifted around my priorities to get there. And that then unlocked the potential, that unlocked the ability. So number 5, the key to building confidence, touching on what we spoke about earlier on, it's always about exposure. So once upon a time in your life, you weren't good at just about anything. You couldn't walk, you couldn't crawl, you couldn't talk, you couldn't even go to the toilet yourself. So everything that you've done has been exposure. You've exposed yourself to, getting on your feet and falling over. You've exposed yourself to using your hands and feet to crawl. You've done all number of things where you're a superb learning machine. And one of the things that you want to do with a supreme learning ability that you have is to allow yourself to be exposed to new things so that you can learn, grow and develop. And that does something on a neurological level in your brain. It allows neuroplasticity, which means that your ability to learn and adapt to things is much, much easier. Because when you do the same thing over and over again, your brain sort of gets in these rigid patterns. So it makes it difficult to learn things. It makes it difficult to understand new things. And if you ever look at kids and how rapidly they learn, they're in a world that they've been exposed to. Everything is new. Everything seems new and everything seems fun and everything seems exciting, because they put themselves in different places to do different things and experience lots of things in life. And as we grow older, we tend to limit, generally speaking, people limit what they do. They don't do a lot of things, they do work and life and all these types of things, but they reduce the things that they're exposed to, meaning that they get stuck in their ways. And the key to building confidence is to explore new things and get good at things that you do that are existing things in your life. And as you get better at them and look for ways to improve, you can start to build more confidence. And particularly if you try something new, whether it's, learning a new sport, hobby, maybe you want to, take up music, or you want to, you've always had an idea about wanting to paint. Anything, it can be absolutely anything. Maybe you want to, work on your own car. You want a little project or something of that nature. Maybe you want to take on a new sporting event on a discipline that you've never done before. Do something new, because you will build the confidence. And what you'll do is you'll remember that you're an ultimate learning machine. And when you realize that, what happens is you start to build that neuroplasticity that allows you to get more out of yourself more of the time and expose yourself to different stimulation. And when you expose yourself to different stimulation, you start to feel really good. And that in itself builds confidence. So number 6, are your friends holding you back? Now, I would say that this is something that's extremely common, that is difficult for most people to even consider, whether it's, a partner, family, friends, essentially anyone that's in your life. You need to make a call if they're good in your life or not. And that can be a tough pill to swallow, because you like people and you can be friends with them. They can be your family. They could be your loved ones. They might even be your partner. And you need to ask yourself if that relationship is working. And the way to do that is to see if there is a benefit. And there's been many, many, many times, in my own life where I've had to face that decision. Now, naturally, people will come and go in your life. It's not that you've made a conscious decision to sort of do things differently. But there is times where you have people in your life that don't bring out the best in you, and maybe you don't bring out the best in them, or maybe their energy just drags you down. Maybe they make your life more difficult than it needs to be. And sometimes you've got to make the call, and it can be tough and it can be hard. But what to do is think about what benefit you would get if you didn't have this negativity, whatever that may be, in your life. And if you're faced with that question, you've got a tough call to make. And that tough call is, how much better would I be if I made this difficult decision to remove this negative influence in my life? And if that's the case, then you need to make a call. And what I would recommend is you cut fast and quick. Don't delay, don't hang around. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So make the call, cut fast, and make sure, surround yourself with. One of the things I would say is, what I would say is, I've been a total and never, it's been something that's never ever lost its power, was the saying that surround yourself with better people, their habits will rub off on you. The sequence of my life is I've got around better and better people, and they have inspired me to bring out the better side of myself, and they will inevitably. A great question was asked earlier on. One of the guys that I'm doing a bit of mentoring with was like, how did you learn how to do all this? And is it a book? Is it a podcast? Is it it's not any one thing. It's about being around really good people. And when you're around really good people, they will bring out the absolute best in you. And that's what you want. You want to have yourself be in an environment that you get the most out of yourself. And then when you do that, you're also signaling that for others to do that, whether it be your friends, whether it be the people that you have in your own company, whether it be your own family, whether it be your own children. You want to inspire them, but to be able to be that inspiration, you need to do the work. And that work is that you need to be around better people. And you need to, in this world, in this day and age, that's even easier than it's ever been, because you can be in rooms where people are recording podcasts, they are recording audiobooks, they're maybe writing traditional reading books, they're on interviews on social media platforms, clips, reels, shorts, long form content, short form content, medium form content. There is never a shortage of material where you're feeling that you're running out of access to some of the great minds. And you might not necessarily need to physically meet them in person. That's a thing of the bygone era, where you had to be in the room, you had to travel to go to the seminar, you had to network to get there. But now with the way technology has been able to cut the distance between some of the great minds that are out there, you can have access to what they think, what they see, how they operate. And if you expose yourself to more of that, guess what's going to happen? Those habits will rub off on you. So break free from analysis paralysis. Now, one of the things that I've done is, you've maybe heard that I've been embarking on a mission to tune my ability to be a great hypnotist. And one of the reasons I've done that is that the very first self-help book that I ever read was by Paul McKenna, the famous hypnotist. And that book was called Instant Confidence. And the time that I read that book, should I say, if anyone knew me back then, they would have said that there was no reason that I had no business reading a book about confidence, because I had bags and bags of it. But there must have been something in there where I was looking for more, because, as I said, the theme of this is growth. So you want to feel growth all of the time. And when you feel growth, what happens is you start to want more and enjoy the journey. So it's not necessarily the outcomes that give you the thrill, that internal thrill, because this is where people fall into the trap. They look for the outcome. So it's the bank, the cash, the cars, the holidays, that type of thing, because they're just quick hits and they disappear and they fade. They don't linger around to give you that satisfaction. And it's the growth and development is actually the key. When you feel that you're growing and developing, what happens is naturally you will get these results. So you will get the cars, you'll get the money, you'll get the companies, you'll get the stocks, shares, bonds, whatever it is. You'll start to get the outcomes. But it's not the outcomes that drive you. It's the feeling of you're growing and developing, getting better. You're getting more and more experience. and that's what makes it fun. But when you start to paralyze those outcomes by over analyzing things, what happens is that then breeds procrastination, where you overthink and then you don't take any action. And if you don't take any action, you'll never get any results. So analysis by paralysis can be very, very dangerous to dreams. I would say it's the number one killer of dreams, is people over-analysing things. Now, that's not to say analysis has its place, because analysis does, just like we alluded to earlier on, you want to figure out what it is that you want. You need to analyse how to get there, and you need to start making a plan of where you're at to where you want to be. And that, by its very nature, involves analysis. But where you don't want to cross the line is by over-analysing. And when I mean over-analysing, it means that you're not taking any action. That means that you're not progressing in any way, and you're just going round and round and round in circles. So it's a very, very important thing that you recognise what momentum is and you keep moving forward. And when you keep doing that, what happens is when you move forward, you can get feedback from what you're doing. Because it doesn't matter how much analysis you do. When you start something, you're never going to get it right first time. There's always some sort of tweak or some sort of adjustment. In fact, there's usually many adjustments and many tweaks that you need to make. So what you're better doing is getting feedback from the task that you're doing, and then adapt and adjust. And that way you can rapidly make the changes that you need, because you're getting feedback from what you're doing. And if you're in the stage of paralysis by analysis, i.e. procrastination, you're killing that. And that's what you want to avoid. And if you take the necessary measures to actually get momentum, what you'll do is you'll start to get the feedback and you'll start to get the results. Again, it's not one that I've had particular problems with, because my default mode is generally action. So I like to start, throw the ball out, get going, and fix as I go along, because I'm getting the feedback. So again, I don't have much in terms of my own experience, but certainly feeding back what people have a lot of the time. This is the issue that they have, where they just they call it over analysis, but the problem they actually have is lack of action. And the lack of action is that they've put themselves into a state of over emphasizing the analysis. And when you do that, what happens is, circling back around to the hypnosis part is when your left side of your brain is the hypercritical, highly analytical part, and the right hand side of your brain is the subconscious, creative part of the mind. And if you are putting an overemphasis on one side of the brain, then it stagnates and doesn't allow the flow of the other side of your brain that can provide the inspiration and the creativity that you need. So one of the things that people go to hypnotists for all the time is to disengage the overstimulated part of the brain, which is essentially making new patterns in the brain to get the results that they want to achieve. Because what's happened is you've developed a pattern that is blocking your ability to get the result. And that's when people get stuck. They're getting bad habits. This is where it comes from. They have an habitual behaviour that gets a result that they want to change. And this is why it's powerful to understand what's going on in your brain and, ironically, give it a bit of analysis. And when you do give it a bit of analysis, you will find that there is a big difference between a good analysis and bad over-analysis. So avoid at all costs over-analysis. Take action, get moving, get the feedback, and start the ball rolling. It's never going to be perfect. So start, get the minimum amount that you need, begin, and then start the process of tweaking as you go along. And then you'll start to get the feedback that you need to tweak what you need to do. And as long as you listen and understand the feedback, apply the right changes, you'll actually have fun carrying it out. So get on board, get stuck in and enjoy. Get started, take that action. Now, final one from me, and we'll wrap up this little story time of the mindset. So how to get out of a rut. Now, hey, we're humans, we're not robots, so we can get in a rut sometimes. And if that's you can feel yourself trapped, you can feel, what's the point? You can feel stuck, you can feel stagnant, you can feel, fear that people might find out that you're not doing as well as you're projecting you are, or they think that you are, and you can start to get in your own head. You can let the internal dialogue and the internal chatter get out of control, and you just feel hopeless and lost. And if that's you, then what I would say to yourself is, what happens from here? Ask yourself that. If I stay here, what happens? And you can start to play out those scenarios. Does your life get better? No. Do you feel worse? Yes. Should I continue this pattern? Probably not. What can I do about it? I'm not sure. And these are the sorts of chatter that you've got going on. If that sounds like you, guess what? You're not alone. And the way to get out of it is to actually start to look at it, not from the outside, but the inside. Start to change that internal dialogue, change the internal chatter, start to ask better questions. And I mean internal questions. Like, if I was to change this, what would I change it to? Or put another way, if I wanted to have my life the way I wanted it to look, what would it look like and why? And then what changes could I make now that could help me get closer to that ideal life that I want? Who can I be around that can motivate and drive me forward? Who's good at doing what I want to do, and how can I get involved? And one of the biggest things, if you're in a rut, one of the biggest things that you can do to immediately change how you feel about your situation is you can change your focus. And the number one way to change your focus is to start exercising. And you don't need to do anything elaborate. If the lifting weights is your thing, go in the gym and just start a light workout, or go a walk, get in yourself some fresh air, go and find a local hill and go a little hill climb. Get yourself moving, and then start to ask those better questions. When you start to ask those better questions, you will start to get a better result, because you're changing your focus. You're changing what you think about. And when you think about a better life, better results, a better version of you, getting out of the rut, feeling good, feeling positive, feeling motivated, what happens is you start to see a different perspective. When you start to see a different perspective, you start to feel momentum, because you now don't have darkness. You have, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? You start to ask better questions. It opens your horizons. And as you open your horizons, you then start to see a clear path out of your little rut. And you can dig away and get right out of that rut and start to make changes in your life. So if that sounds like you, get out of the rut. But first of all, get moving. And if you get moving, you start to feel good. And even if the day doesn't turn out as good as you hoped, you've still got your exercise in. You've still started the process. And keep doing it over and over again. Consistency over time builds results. So if that's you, get yourself involved, get out there. And most of all, the reason that this podcast going out at this particular time is that lots of people have probably made a New Year's resolution, and a lot of them will have fell by the wayside. 15 to 17 days into the month, they've just completely, faltered. If that's you, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to let that be you and just write off the rest of the year? You're going to do something about it. If you're going to do something about it, what are you going to do? Well, what I would suggest you do is go and check out the podcast that I did on VDS, your visualization, pick a direction and start. Go check that out, follow the instructions that are on there, and get yourself involved and start making changes now. And the changes that you want to make it slightly harder than you would like, but not more difficult than you can handle. And then start to get in the groove, increasing the intensity slightly each time, so that the intensity goes up as you're improving. And what you're doing is you're putting yourself in that flow state. And that's the best way to get the best results out of yourself. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Mount Mindset, where we do all things mindset. And I hope you're smashing your New Year's resolutions. We are making sure that you're keeping on the path. And if you're off the path, then get back on. Check out the playlist. Go through it. 14 items on there. If it's the top items, I've not had any more requests since. We seem to have got them all in the bag. Go check the list out. We're over at school. The links will be in the bio. They'll be somewhere on the show notes. Hit the link. Come and see the school platform, where you'll find the full list of the videos that I'm discussing here. We've got the hill climb at the end of each month. So the last Sunday of the month, we do a hill climb. If you fancy getting involved, then get in touch. And from me this week, that's a wrap.